G'day folks, welcome to this setup for the full campaign for Barbarossa Army Group Scen 1941. This is Scenario 8, the full campaign, Operation Barbarossa. Most units are set up. I say most because the Germans do have some options for their super heavy artillery placement, which I haven't quite finalised yet. That's 2 super heavy artillery units. They've also got some rail artillery, a couple of rocket artillery at second place in Poland down here, so I haven't figured that out just yet, but it's just a few artillery pieces. So here's the front line, here's the border. Again, this excludes Army Group North and Army Group South. It is just the operations of Army Group Centre. In particular, the 3rd Panzer Group under Hoth and the 2nd Panzer Group under Guderian. They're the 2 big German panzer groups. They're the most powerful panzer groups on the Eastern Front in 1941. And it's the key reason why Army Group Centre's initial advance was so successful. Basically, I mean, the Germans broke out through here. They reached the Niemen River by the 23rd of June, so within 1 day they're here. By the 2nd day they'd reached the outskirts of Vilnius up here, and then over the next 3 days, I'm going to use a stick so I'm not reaching over the camera, but they kind of circled around off camera. There's some sort of map to the north here as well. They kind of circled around and reached the east side of Minsk by the 27th of June. So you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, and they had advanced a fair way into Soviet territory. In the south, that 2nd Panzer Group under Guderian, a couple of Panzer Corps south of Brest here. You can see here, this is sort of the town. There's also the fortification right under here. They're kind of 2 separate things and 2 separate considerations. So the 24th Panzer Corps drove south of Brest along there. They hit Slutsk, and it's a fair way, I can't see. It's over there, basically, in this area. They hit Slutsk it fell on the 26th of June, and they'd reached Bobruisk on the 28th, 29th, and had secured a crossing. I think it's a long way away, but I think this is the Berezina out here. They'd secured a crossing it's too far away for me to see, yeah, along here I think. Secured a crossing there by the 30th of June. North of Brest, the 47th Panzer Corps punched through Russian lines, advanced through, again, I've got to, looking at this map side on, advanced through Slonin. I think they took a more northern advance up here, and then captured Baranovici, which, if I'm reading it side on, is this objective here on the 25th of June. So you're looking at, I think that's not, sorry. So looking at sort of 1 day, 2 days up there. Then they also swung around. So they're kind of going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then meeting up with sort of advanced elements of the 3rd Panzer Group around Minsk to then create this massive pocket of these Russian forces. The infantry followed behind. They kind of tried to follow as much as possible, but a lot of the infantry tended to drive this pocket through here, through Grodno, and up north through here. So you had this kind of pocket centered around Bialystok here, this Russian pocket here of units that couldn't get out, and then a second pocket centered around another location. I've got the name of it. So 2 big pockets of Russian units, one small pocket here and then a large pocket here, and by I think it was around the 8th of July, both of those pockets had been eliminated, and the Germans had captured estimated 300 to 340,000 Russian POWs with remarkably minimal losses amongst Army Group Center. So, in this campaign game, how does the German player get this done, and how does the Russian player try to stop them? I'll talk about the Germans first. Okay, so obviously they've got a breakthrough here, and the markers in red, you can see all these red markers here, they're sort of first or second turn objectives. As I said in one of the early videos, it should be easy for the Germans to break through. They will smash the Russians. They can kind of come in here and crush the Russians if they want. But that's not how they get victory points. And that's not going to be... It's interesting. It's kind of... I'm weighing up sort of short-term need to secure victory points versus a long-term need to isolate, surround, and eliminate a lot of these Russian units in the front. So I'm going to try and stick to that historical path as closely as possible. I'm also using historical weather. Now the weather is pretty horrific. There was in fact a storm on about the 7th or 8th day of the campaign, and it's reflected in the historical weather results. You can roll for weather, which I've always done in the past, but I thought this time I'd stick to historical weather just to see what it's like. So first 5 days, big German advance. Around day 6, I think it's day 6, day 7, that storm hits and it helps the Russians. Vilnius is again, I'm kind of looking at these road networks and rail networks and trying to figure out how I'm going to get everything done. You will notice, and I pointed this out when the map was clear, there's a rail network leading out along here that goes through Vilnius. I think long term, this is my best chance for a rail network. I'm going to send the infantry towards Grodno. Panzer divisions will not be heading that way. I'm going to try and focus all my effort out here, kind of a northeast direction. Quickly get across the Neman River and try. I'm going to aim to capture Vilnius by the end of turn 2. Now, I mentioned in the last video that a lot of these locations have turn-based victory points. So if you can capture Vilnius by the end of turn 2, it's worth 4 victory points. 4 victory points if I can get here by the end of turn 2. Thereafter, by turn 3 onwards, it's only worth 1 victory point. That's a big drop. Now, how do I get... The first big question I've been stewing over is how do I get to Vilnius by the end of turn 2? How do I capture that hex? Now, it's weakly defended, just 1 defense factor NKVD unit. How do I get there? Well, with these Panzer divisions, I'm going to have to overrun this unit here, hopefully eliminate them, otherwise kick them out of the way. Then, let's look. 1, I don't know, 1, 2, I think it's 3, 4, if I'm doing my kind of terrain calculations correctly, 4, 5. And then from here, geez, do we try to push some of these guys out of the way? Do I go up here and try to overrun this hex? Or is this kind of the side of the first combat phase? Do I fight these 2 units, kick them off the river, and then try to rely on the mechanized movement phase? So, yeah, motorised units in that Axis motorised movement phase will move at 1/2 the MA. So, I mean, 1, 2, I don't know how I get there. I don't know how I get the movement points. Without overrunning here, okay, so 1, maybe these units here are the most advanced, and they can go dislodge here. That's dislodge there, overrun there, so we can look at 1, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sit there, and then it's I think 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know how they get to Vilnius by the end of the second turn. Obviously, you have to use a lot of these panzer divisions to overrun, to clear out these Russian units in the way, to lay a path for other panzer divisions to follow up behind them via clear roads. But how? Let's imagine there are no Russian units on the map. Okay, so I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 1, 2, 3.5, and then you're relying on combat. So you've got to have absolutely perfect movement rates for my most advanced divisions here. I don't know. It's really hard. It's really, really, really hard to get to Vilnius by the end of the second turn. I think everything has to go perfectly. You need absolutely perfect overrun rolls. What did I say? 1, 2, 3, 3.5. Assuming this unit isn't there, maybe, I don't know, 4, 5, and then I think 6, 7, avoiding that zone of control. That's 7, that's a full movement rate. And then 1, 2, 3.5, that doesn't reach it. So maybe your reconnaissance units, and each of these divisions will have this is a motorized, here we go, Panzer Division. That's their reconnaissance unit, which has a movement of 9. 3 attack factors. So is the idea that the Germans rely on their fast-moving reconnaissance units to get to Vilnius by the end of the second turn. Anyway, that's the way we're going. We're going to strive for it. We're going to leave the infantry and this artillery to try to seize Grodno. You notice a lot of the Russians are based just south of this objective here. Big stack here. Some decent infantry in the area. Okay, we've got Bialystok in the centre here. Okay, so this is where the pocket was. It is only worth 1 victory point if captured by the third turn, so not a huge objective. If I can get it, great. Grodno is worth 1 victory point if captured on the first turn. Down the south there, the city of Brest is worth 2 victory points if captured by the third turn. So the Panzers race past, and I think they're just going to leave that for the infantry to take care of. And finally, the big objective out there is Minsk, with the green dot out here. Alright, so Minsk is worth 6 victory points if captured by game turn 5. So everything has to go well. I think if the Germans capture Vilnius by turn 2 or 3, they've then got 2 turns to race ahead, and there's a lot of clear terrain out there, and there's several kind of parallel roads which can take them out to Minsk. The problem is, by that kind of turn, the Russians are responding. Whew. So all the while, the Germans trying to seize these objectives. They're trying to push forward, trying to capture these objectives and gain victory points, but also stop the Russians from getting out of this pocket. And it's going to mean the Panzers are going to be rushing really far ahead. I don't know if their supplies can keep up. We're going to be trying to clear this rail line through Vilnius, and then it heads straight out towards Minsk. You can see this line out here. So that's what we're trying to push forward. That's the northern the group. This is the 3rd Panzer Group under Hoth. I don't remember the name of the infantry formations down here. From memory, 4th Army is one of them. I can't remember the other. Down the south, 2nd Panzer Group, bypass Brest, and again, try and do something similar. Try to overrun those Russian units where feasible, blocking those roads. What do we got here? 1, 2, Just two. There's a headquarters there as well. So somehow swinging around, what have we got here? There's a little path through the kind of marshes here. I think swinging around across, there's a big Russian stack here of 5 defense factors. I don't know how they're going to punch their way through there. This northern route is pretty easy. They can swing all the way through here and around, and they're off. That southern route taken by the 24th Panzer Corps, these guys here, through here, unless they go through the swamp. I don't think they went, this is a Pripyat marshes, and I think they followed this kind of southern rail line. Historically, they went kind of straight east. But again, wanting to bypass these Russian defenders, maybe they can swing around and leave the infantry to tie these guys down. You'll notice all the interdiction markers. This is part of the scenario setup. I think there's basically 3 turns of varying interdiction effects. And what these basically do is hamper Russian headquarters' ability to respond. Whereas normally these headquarters can help with the organisation and the reaction of Russian units. With interdiction, they can't. It also prevents reaction through this whole area, so that there can be no Russian reaction anywhere within that zone of interdiction. It impedes Russian artillery. I think I spoke about that in the last video. Panzer fuel shortages are not checked until turn 10. That's another key consideration. So you don't have to worry about fuel. It's a mistake I made when I played Armour Group North, until turn 10. And by that stage, we'll be way up there. The green markers, way off in the east, and you can't see all of them, there's 3 of them out there. They are broader objectives for, I think, game turns. So these are mainly game turn 2 objectives. I think Probutsk is game turn 5. The green ones are also sort of game turn 5 and 6 objectives. So they've got sort of 1 additional turn. Once they reach that, this is when the bad weather hits. This is when the Russians get their reinforcements, begin to reform their lines, get their air reinforcements in particular. Things get tough for the Germans, and from that point on, a lot of their objectives way out in the east, which you can't see. This is basically, what you're looking at here is a little more than half the map width. And a lot of those objectives out there are game turns 15, 16, 17, 18, when the caps reduce. And I'll worry about those at a much later stage. For now, primary German objective is, as it was historically, to pincer move around Minsk, come straight through here, end up on this highway, and then somehow navigate my way through here and end up somehow getting across here, maybe even further south. I don't know. We will see what happens. But at some stage, there needs to be a meeting of these 2 panzer groups to pocket all these Russians. Yeah. Historically, that happened within 4 days. I don't like my chances, to be honest. But we'll see what we can do. So the infantry is going to follow up, and I think they'll be carrying their artillery with them, and they'll be grinding away at Grodno, and they're going to, I think, set themselves a small objective. If the infantry can kind of come around here and pocket this Bialystok group, that'd relieve a lot of pressure on those panzers racing east, because it means that these Russian units in here can't then interfere. And there were a lot of Russian counterattacks in that first week. The way the borders, basically the Russian strategy was defend the frontier, and as crazy as it sounds, they wanted to counterattack. Their plan was, if Germany ever invaded the Soviet Union, they would counterattack into Poland and try to end the war quickly. Incidentally, it's interesting. So yeah, Germans advanced. They pocketed all these Russian units, and then there was a Russian counterattack, which the Germans fought off, and they advanced again to Smolensk, pocketed another huge, about 250,000 Russian troops way out east of this area. But the Russians kept putting up this stiff resistance, and German commanders reportedly noted that Russian resistance was stiffer than they thought, and that even with all these massive losses, they were still sending in armies, and they realised they'd underestimated Russian force sizes and strengths and reinforcements. And that's when this Hitler plan comes in. Hitler was convinced that he could never destroy the Russian forces in this area, and he went with that the economic objectives instead, kind of deprioritize that drive east, and instead start to shift his focus to army group south, the Donbass region in East Ukraine and the Crimea and the like. So yeah, that factors into the rules as well. So you stick with the original plan until I think it's around game turn 16. The plan instantly changes to Hitler's plan, and there's some various rules. The value, you may notice when I'm showing this sheet that the value for different objectives change. So under the Hitler plan, Chernihiv becomes more valuable under the Hitler plan. Gomel becomes less valuable, and so forth. So as the plan changes, the benefits for these cities vary. So these are the railheads. So the German railheads, in fact, haven't been placed yet, but they are. For example, what I'll do is basically put a little German railhead. Where does this one go? This one goes there, to show where German rail reaches. And as the idea is, as the panzers advance, we can spend rail conversion points. You can see here rail conversion rates. We have 4 on map C, 6 on map D, H, I and WA combined. That's not a lot actually. But we get some special ones within Lithuania and Poland. So we can go, for example, if we've advanced lines 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, although I think from memory, I need to double check it, there may be a cap of, I think, 4 per rail line. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I need to double check that, for example. And then from sort of next turn on, we can advance our supplies out to this point. That's kind of the idea. That's what you want to be doing. Yeah. So a lot of, you may just notice the red markers do not move on game turn 1. They're just restrictions on a lot of units, a lot of Russian units in particular, that cannot respond on the first game turn. Historically, Russian communications were cut, and there was a lot of non-communication among the Russians on that first day. Whew. What else? So yeah, Germans. It's basically a race for victory points, and yes, it might be. You can expect the Germans to advance. You can expect the Germans to destroy a heck of a lot of Russian units. There'll be huge Russian, Soviet casualties, but the Germans need the victory points from capturing those objectives, and that's tough. So whilst it might be an easy battle for the Germans, it's a difficult game for them because of the need to strive for objectives and victory points by certain turns. And they need a lot of victory points. Here's a victory conditions chart at the bottom here, and they're looking for a marginal victory. Scenario 8, they need 90 victory points. That's a lot. That's a lot of victory points. I mentioned Vilnius is 4, and that's what I'm striving for. If they miss that, they only get 1 from game turn 3 onwards. That's a lot. There are other ways to get victory points as well, of course, but capturing those objectives, getting the bonus, is a quick way to boost their chances. So yes, I'm probably still a day or two away from kicking this offensive off. Everything's ready, but there's two ways you can approach this. You can just say, okay, I'm set up, I'm going to charge in and see what happens. But I think if you do that, the German offensive might stall within 3 or 4 days. The Germans really need to think carefully about how they're going to get things done. I've been studying this little area here. I don't know. I'm going to keep studying it for the next day or two, double checking the rules before I actually kick things off and get things going. Right, so how are the Russians going to respond? If possible, pull back. They want to survive with as many... What I've learnt from Army Group South and Army Group North is that Russians just need to get as many units to survive as possible. In Army Group South in particular, the Russians lost because they just ran out of units. They had too many units surrendering, isolated, and they want to avoid that happening in Army Group Centre. So yes, pulling their units the heck out. If I can see an opportunity to satisfy a mandated offensive, mandated attack, counter-attack, I'll do so. If I can see an opportunity to cut those, because that's another thing that happened in Army Group South. The Panzers were cut off, and via Russian counterattacks. So the Russians did launch some good counterattacks late. It was just too late. So if the Russians can see an opportunity to counterattack, they will take it. I think careful, well-planned, well-positioned Russian counterattacks can be devastating for the Germans. They can cut that rail link in certain areas. It stops supplies. All they need to do is cut it in one little hex and it stops supplies going forward. Yeah. As I said, no Panzer fuel shortages by turn 10, but it would scare them nonetheless. And it would force the Germans to then have to respond to the presence of Russian units in their supply networks. I'm also, and I think I've learnt pretty well how to mount a sound, I'm not going to say great, but a sound Russian defense. I mentioned the presence of those motorized units behind the lines, headquarters spread out as much as possible. I've made the mistake of grouping headquarters too close together. This is the plan at least. Once these guys start retreating and getting the heck out and trying to escape this pocket, it could just be a mad rush for whatever exit we can find, basically. Yeah, so I say, I'm going to form a good defensive line. I'm going to have these motorized units behind the line. I'm going to form a key line of defendable hexes with my headquarters behind the line to be able to respond. 5 turns in, there'll be just this mass panic of Russian units driving east, trying to get the heck out of this Bialystok pocket. I mentioned German air superiority in the last video. Be interesting to see how they use that, where they use their close air support units. They've got a lot of Junkers 87s at start 4. So yeah, they'll be principally supporting those Panzer Corps, Panzer groups as they advance. Yeah. All right, folks. Well, I think that's about it for now. We'll get this thing rolling pretty soon, and yeah, I'll report back on how the situation unfolds. Thanks all, and take care.